Let's take a look at how to cite books following the rules in the Chicago Manual of Style. First, here is the basic format for citing books in your bibliography. Notice that the title is in italics. If the author's name is unknown, start with the title. When you cite the same source in a footnote, it will look a little different. In this case, the name is not inverted, a specific page reference is provided, and we use commas rather than periods to divide the major elements. Now that we know the basics, we'll zoom into a whole bunch of variants. First, when a book has multiple authors, list them in the same order as on the title page. Now it can happen that there are too many authors to cite all of them. In that case, you can use the abbreviation at all. In a footnote, this happens with any work that has 3 or more authors, or editors. All you need to do is to provide the first name and then add the abbreviation. By contrast, in your bibliography, if a work has 6 or fewer authors, list all the authors. Only if a work has more than 6 authors can you use at all. In that case, list only the first 3 names in your bibliography, followed by at all. Next, if a book has an editor, translator, or compiler instead of an author, add the description after the name. Pause the video to see the different options here. If there are multiple editors, translators, or compilers, add an S to the abbreviation to form the plural. If a work has 3 or more editors or other contributors, cite only the first person in your note, followed by at all. As for the bibliography, list all the contributors unless there are more than 6. In such cases, list only the first 3, followed by at all. Now, contributor roles can get quite complex. Here's how you might cite a book that has an author as well as 1 or more editors, translators, or compilers. Note that in the footnote, we do not use plural abbreviations for editor or other contributor roles when these abbreviations come after the title. Always use the singular form after the title. Also, if you're listing multiple roles, retain the same order as on the original title page. Finally, try to simplify elaborate phrases such as translated and introduced by, or edited and annotated by. Instead, use shorter forms such as translated by or edited by. Next, if a book contains another contribution that you find significant, you can mention it in your footnotes or bibliography. Here you can see just a couple of examples. There are many more ways to describe the specific contribution. Note that ghostwriters are usually introduced by the word with. For example, with Bob Johnson. Alright, if you want to cite a specific chapter or section of someone's book, you can do that. In the note, you'll want to include a page number for where you found the information. You may also include the chapter number, though that's more unusual. By contrast, a bibliography entry does not need to include a page range. Note that you may arrange your bibliography entry slightly differently, as you can see from the last example. Our next example is of a chapter in a collection or anthology. The main difference here is the addition of 1 or more editors. Next, if you want to cite an author's own introduction, preface, afterword, or similar section, you simply add the appropriate phrase. In such cases, the bibliography entry can usually be simplified. On the other hand, if the writer of the foreword or similar section differs from the author, you will need to provide more information. Just as with chapters, there is no need to specify a page range. Let's turn to works with multiple volumes. As you can see, in the footnote we have cited a passage from Volume 3. If the volumes are published over a number of years, provide the first and last year of publication, for example 2005 to 2011. If the specific volume has a name, you can include it in your citation, as you can see here. Finally, when you cite an individual volume in your bibliography, you can order the information in a couple of ways. In these examples, the individual volume has its own editor. Our next citations have to do with reference works. Well-known reference works and dictionaries, for example Wikipedia or the Oxford English Dictionary, these may be cited in a note only. A bibliography entry is optional. When you cite a reference work such as a dictionary or encyclopedia, use the word under along with the item title. In the case of online reference works, you will want to specify either a publication or revision date or an access date, which explains when you last looked at the material. You can use a tag such as last modified or accessed. Make sure you conclude your citation with a URL. Note that titles of websites are normally not italicized unless they are also the title of a book or similar category. Next, we turn to citing an online book. Several options are available. These include citing the application used, listing the file format, for example PDF, and providing a URL or DOI. Here we show you how to list the device used for accessing the text. Since many ebooks have unstable page numbers due to reflowable text, you can often leave out the page number. If the book is provided in an EPUB format rather than through a proprietary format like Kindle, then note that instead of the device. Next, if you've consulted a book online through a website, you can include a URL or DOI. However, if the book can easily be located with a Google search, then including information like a URL or database is not necessary. Also, avoid linking to anything that requires users to log in, for example, a database. We now get to citing the Bible. Quotations from the Bible are cited either in footnotes or in parentheses in the text. There is no need to cite the Bible in your bibliography. Traditionally, Bible books are abbreviated, except for short titles, and chapter and verse are separated by a colon. Alternatively, you can use shorter forms that are not followed by a period. However, in the actual text of your essay, you'll typically want to spell out the full title. Finally, at least for the first time you cite from the Bible, you should indicate which version you used. If after that you again wish to specify the version, you can use an abbreviation. For dissertations, place the title between quotation marks and provide details on the type of thesis as well as the institution where it was written. You can end your entry with a URL, though this is unnecessary if you've already included the public database and identification number. If you consulted only the abstract, you can add the word abstract after the title. In the bibliography, cite the work as a whole. And that's it for citing books.